We need to have a policy that is impartial and based on facts. Let me give you an example. All of us are aware, including educators, that it is important to align ourselves with the needs of the industry. And some of my colleagues actually pointed out the gaps between what happens in the classroom and what is needed in the real world outside. Now, for that, we need a policy which will encourage the right kind of curriculum, the right kind of methodology, including pedagogy, and a certain amount of freedom for the institutions to develop their curriculum, which is on par with the needs of the industry. That is not happening. Or if it is happening, it is not happening like one of my colleagues pointed out. It is not happening at the pace at which it should happen. Let me give you an example. In 2017, 1 year ago, a little more than a year ago, St. Stephen's College had applied for autonomy. Autonomy not to go away from the University of Delhi, but autonomy to design its own curriculum, to involve industry, to encourage partnerships between institutions here and outside India with the college. We had fulfilled all required parameters that the ministry had asked for. And here is the sad thing. The application is lying somewhere. So, I'm just giving this as an example. Policy needs to be impartial and it needs to be robust. It needs to act where it should act. That's my first suggestion. The second suggestion which I have is we need to rethink educational priorities. What are we prioritizing? And I'm very aware that I am speaking this as the principal of a college where the cutoffs are 98% and above. This is a torment which I face as the head of an institution. When we go through our interviews and we put up our list of students, we know that 400 students have made it every year. But I and my colleagues know that there are 1,000 students more who can be accommodated. But they have fallen out. The problem is not with them. The problem is with our educational system and what we consider success. Are we going to look only at marks and say that yes, this is the criteria by which I will select my students? There is something skewed in that. And I think as an individual, as a parent, as a student, as teachers, as heads of the industry, as a ministry, and as a country, we need to rethink our definition of success. This kind of a mindless speeding is not going to get us anywhere. The casualties are many, including family life, mental health. Money alone is not the criteria. And all of us are aware of friends or relatives or maybe colleagues who have fallen in that big race. So, as my second suggestion is we need to rethink how we define success. We also need to consider the relevance of our education, the happiness quotient, and what we consider success at all. I'm sure all of us if we carry this back and try to think about it in our homes as individuals, in our workplaces, I'm sure we'd be able to effect the change that we want. The third suggestion which I have, and it's something which my colleagues have also mentioned, is that encouragement should be provided to institutions. And the encouragement must come from the industry. The encouragement must come from the government. It should come through the industry supporting institutions financially, in terms of ideas, in terms of participating on the board. And I must say that the government has, with autonomous institutions, permitted industry participation. But the pace at which these changes happen are far from desirable. Also, sometimes the encouragement is a little strange. All of you perhaps are aware that recently the government chose to award Institution of Eminence to an academic institution which was yet to be born. You're aware of that. So sometimes there is something wrong in the policy. I will not spell it out, you know for yourselves. So encouragement, both from the industry and for the government, to proven institutions. And the last suggestion which I have is that there should be involvement at policy-making level by two sets of people. One is the teaching fraternity itself, and the other is the industry. If there is involvement at an active level at policy making from the industry and from teachers, I'm sure we will be able to have a lot more success in bridging the gap between industry and academia. Let me go over the 4 suggestions once again. Policy that is impartial and based on facts. We need to rethink educational priorities, how we define success. The third one is both you and the government should encourage institutions through participation, through sponsorships, through supports, like getting onto the board. And the fourth one is in policy making, teachers and the industry should be involved. Thank you very much for this time.